Dean and Tim hosted a dinner for 10 high-achieving men from the community, which we called Dinner at the Cap Table. Within this segment from the dinner, the group talk about the importance of family within their success.
We want to touch on a couple of things, and I think the first one we'd love to touch on is the conversation around the black family. What does that mean to people? What could it mean to people? Is it important? Do we do enough to support black women as black men? What does black family mean to you?
I've had the privilege of growing up in the Afro-Caribbean area. Obviously, the big G is hit. As a venture capitalist, 0.24% goes to black men, 0. Anything is nothing, so that's atrocious. But to black women is 0.024. Ultimately, I just don't feel like we even can do enough, but do we do enough? No. Should we do more? Yes.
We make stereotypes about what the women in our community are going to do or can do, right? But they're far excelling some of what the males are doing in the community, right? They are running businesses, they're in executive positions in organisations. And to your point, Carl, they are suffering discrimination on multiple intricate levels, but they're still doing, right? Individuals from within the black community have the highest propensity of single parent households. You didn't come from that environment, you did all right. But then we've gone on to create things that we didn't see when we were younger. So does it matter?
Me, as in the way I want to go and the things I want to succeed in, I need to have a family. I can't do without having a strong black family, especially growing up in Enfield. Here in the 90s was needed. She understands the assignment of me being a black man, that even though we're not together, I still have to be heavily present. So she makes sure she's well, she makes sure that I'm still in the kid's life massively, you know what I mean?
For me, fatherhood is something that I'm passionate about because I grew up without a dad. My dad died when I was 1, he was 30, and I thought I was gonna die at 30. At time, from when I was a child, I just thought, oh, because my dad died young, I'm gonna die young. And so I was in a rush to do everything. I had my first son at 24, got married when I was 24. Because of that, I've almost tried to overcompensate for my son, and I'm almost pinched myself that I'm able to see my son be B1, B10, B11, I've got an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. I'm properly excited. I'm able to see that because my father wasn't able to see that. Fatherhood has completely defined my whole life.
I came from a single parent background as well. My mum raised me in Dominica and Caribbean, and I was fortunate. I say I got off lightly because the fact that had my mum been a different type of person, and had I grown up to be a different type of person, I could have ended up completely over the other side.
How did it make you feel towards your dad? Because I'm like you guys, single parent mum, and then when I became a father, I remember cutting my son's hair. It became so important to me to cut this 2-year-old's hair every 2 weeks. He couldn't care less. I'm like, no, we cut the hair, and we talk, and he tells me at nursing, whatever. And in that moment, cutting his hair, I was like, I really hate my dad. And every Sunday going football with him and watching him play football, and the joy I got from that, I was like, my dad, he just didn't want any of this. So how did it make you reflect on your dad?
My mum didn't make me sit there and be like, oh, I need my dad, where's my dad? Of course I was curious. I remember exactly the day we met again. I hadn't seen him since I was 4 years old. So I remember that, so we're talking 15 years later. And I was the word I would use is, I was indifferent. And at that moment, I felt grateful because I didn't have that pain.
You didn't miss
I didn't have that anger. I was just cool.
My parents were together. My mum was the head of the house. We worked in all sorts of hours, but still coming home, cooking. But my dad was in every day.
It was there.
Those who worked was there, but there was no sort of, let's go out, let's go to the cinema, let's go play football. He was still young as well. So he's growing up, trying to find his way in life, but he's a young father.
I come from a single parent family. There were 6 of us were boys. My mum was a single parent. She fled an abusive relationship. And the difficulty that I had was I've never seen my mum cry. So for me, that means that never. So she felt that she could never ever be vulnerable. And that was a difficulty for black women, particularly for my mum. She felt like she had to be the strong one.
Do I resent my dad?
Yeah, I do. When I do things with my son, I think to myself, how could my dad not want
I'm the
this?
same.
When I take my sons to school, when I hear them calling me dad, when I see their face light up, I'm like, how can he not
Want this.
want
Understand.
this feeling?
I've been married 19 years with 20 years next year.
Congratulations.
3 children.
God bless.
It's only when you start going through some of these struggles, some of the issues you have as a married couple, bringing up kids, I started realizing, wow, actually,
This is hard.
this is difficult. This is hard. I became a Christian when I was like 23. That automatically meant I had men in the church, black men around in the church, not the church. I thought to see how they did things. And I looked at my dad, like, you didn't have this. You did not have this.
The new generation we're not coming from a position of like scarcity anymore. Like, if I think about my relationship with my dad, so I was born here, but then I went to live in Ghana for 10 years. And then I came back here and I lived with my dad. He was like a first generation immigrant. He just come from Ghana. His whole thing was just hustle, hustle, hustle. Try and do something, yeah. Force and function of me really wanting to just win in business was I had seen my dad struggle and I knew I didn't want that. And so like everything was just, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that.